Before the podcast, you brought up Mark Ingram's post-game introduction of Lamar Jackson. So I figured I had to give you one before this podcast. So are you ready for this?
Yeah.
I would like to introduce y'all to a little man with a dad bod. He was a former daily fantasy sports MVP frontrunner until he told you to use Kyle Allen last week, but you better use his DFS bargains this week or he'll go Myles Garrett on you and beat you over the head with your own helmet. And if you feel different about that, you can come see me because I'm about that. Whoa, whoa, DJ Primo, in your ear. Let's get loaded because this is the Loaded Box Podcast.
We're going to finish first because we finished last. You already know, son.
I swear to God, if you're listening to this podcast, that should make sense to you, so I'm not going to explain it. But DJ, scale 1 to 10, how was my intro for you?
It was good. You missed the six-pack. You sent me a picture the other day, and there's no way you're not fatter than I am. So I'm actually going to put you to shame once you start seeing my stuff. I haven't stepped on a treadmill. I haven't even walked for like a year or two. I'm still skinnier than you.
A dad bod doesn't absolutely mean that you're out of shape. My definition of a dad bod my definition is a person that was once athletic, once in shape, and just kind of lost it ever since they had their kid. Having a dad bod is kind of something to be proud of, to be honest with you.
I think the dad bod phase was like kind of made up, and people actually have realized, girls don't actually like it. So, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of it.
Despite those BS studies that say that a girl would rather have a guy that has a dad bod versus a six-pack. I also like how I asked you to grade it on a 1 to 10, and you said it was pretty good.
I didn't even hear the scale, but I just looked. I think I got thrown off by my son, who's crawling around with no clothes, butt-ass naked, like a alien from Predator movie that I've seen.
Like father, like son. The only difference is he doesn't have that dad bod yet. But yes, This is NFL Week 12, DJ. It's our fantasy football preview. We're going to talk fantasy football start, sits, general advice, our DFS, daily fantasy stacks, bargains, must use, avoid, general advice. But the great thing about this week is it's like do or die when it comes time to like trades and must-win games because your playoffs are likely starting very soon. Are you ready for this playoffs to start?
I've never been more ready.
I just can't believe that it's here already. You gave me nothing there as I'm drinking my beer. I'm working on that dad bod as well. I got to catch up. That's my biggest goal right now. I got to catch up to you.
Crazy how there's 2 more weeks left, though. It's like it's throwing me off. Like once I get to 11, I'm like, shit, are the playoffs here? But there's like 2 more weeks for us to play in the regular season, so I still have a chance. You still have a chance in 2 more games to make that move. And actually, in one of our leagues, I play you, which is huge this week because I need to beat your ass.
The crappy thing is it's like do or die time in fantasy, and you've got some teams with some big players that are on bye weeks. I mean, like I'm saying you like as an audience do like I do for sure. I've already chalked up that in that league I'm going to lose to you, but then I play one of the worst teams in the league the last week, and I should mop the floor with him, and that'll put me into the playoffs in a decent position.
We'll see what happens. I'm just gonna hopefully murder your ass. But I've got a couple of guys on buys that aren't very favorable for me either. So I got some questionable decisions.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, you better try to outbid me tonight because I'm going all in on the waiver wire because I have way too much money left in that league, and it's on, baby. I feel like I'm gonna spend like $60 on the dude, like for real.
I have no money left in any of my fantasy leagues, but DJ, as we always do with this podcast, we start with your daily fantasy bargain quarterback of the week. So for week 12, I know you texted me and told me that the quarterbacks are poo-poo this week, but who are you going with as your bargain option?
The quarterbacks are poop. Like, how bad have the quarterbacks been in fantasy this year? This might be one of the worst years I remember. It really does kind of drop off after a certain point. Even Aaron Rodgers had his struggles fantasy-wise at the beginning of this year, but mine's not really a bargain because there's not – I mean, we're just looking at the Sunday slate here. there's not really many options on Sunday. So much so that my choice is $7,500, and it's Baker Mayfield, who usually, I think if you had a full slate of Sunday, would probably be closer to 7,000 on a normal Sunday. But he is playing against the Miami Dolphins, so I'm going to use him because I decided I'm going to start going with guys who can run a little bit more often. But Kyler Murray and Lamar Jackson always cost too much, so they don't make sense to be a bargain. So I'm just hoping Baker Mayfield can scramble a little bit, find the end zone. But he's playing the Miami Dolphins, worst defense in the league, or one of the worst defensive leagues against quarterbacks. He's got Odell Beckham, who's just waiting to go off. He's starting to feed him like crazy because he's getting pissed. There's a lot of reasons you have to take Baker Mayfield. You got to let your guy make a play. He's going to let Odell make plays, and he'll probably make him look good. Browns are starting to play better. They have a great, just like the Jets, they have some great teams coming up that they can play where Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold alike can look really good. So Baker Mayfield, 7,500 is my play this week. And I've been looking at my bargain quarterbacks. I usually don't even play them in the league because I have enough money to play a good quarterback. This one I might actually insert into my lineup if I'm trying to save some money for like a McCaffrey or something.
Yeah, I like it. And I'm going to go in a little bit more depth when we talk wide receivers for this team. But when you look at Baker Mayfield, I mean, honestly, the last couple of weeks, I always say every single week, I want my quarterback to hit 20 fantasy points at the minimum. Well, 2 weeks ago, he hit 17, so he was damn near there. Last week, he hit 22. But over the last 4 weeks, he's played the first, fourth, third, and 12th hardest defenses when it comes to defenses playing against quarterbacks. This week with the Dolphins are 20th against the pass, and we saw Josh Allen and John Brown just basically make the Dolphins defense look like anyone could beat them. And you have the Browns right now. Granted, they have a lot of on-field, off-field issues with what the hell happened last Thursday, but if there's ever a time to catch a spark and really turn things around, it would be this weekend against the Dolphins. And at this point, it's must-win time for them if they have any chance of making noise or making a run at the playoffs. I can't hate on that pick whatsoever, to be honest with you. I think it's a very good pick. And I like that idea too, like you said. If it's the full slate of quarterbacks and you have tons of options, I probably haven't considered Baker Mayfield for an entire week, this entire year. This would be the week I would do it.
Breaking news, Carmelo Anthony hit a 3 for the Portland Trailblazers.
So after being out of the league for like a year and a half, he now has more three-pointers in like one game than Ben Simmons has in his entire NBA career.
Nailed it. And he's 0-0.
Is he really?
Yeah. That's incredible.
MVP.
Fuck yeah.
DJ, I switched it up a little bit this week because I honestly could not come up with a preferred stack of the week. I know that's my MO, but I didn't want to lie to the listeners. I didn't want to just come up with some shit. So basically, for my positions, I've got observations and advice. And my first observation, it's kind of a question I want to pose to you. Regarding the quarterback position, is this the week that you would be willing to just ride the wave of teams playing against Tampa Bay and suck it up and use Matt Ryan, 7,900 versus the Bucs? Let me rattle off a couple of things before you answer that.
I'm so angry right now.
Bucs, second to last against the pass. However, here's one thing that you might have going for you if you say, no, I will never use Matt Ryan. In the Falcons' 2-game win streak, it's been all defense. Matt Ryan has had 16 points in both of those games. So it's not like he's even hitting that 20-point threshold, despite the fact that they're winning. He was scoring a little bit more when they were losing. So where do you draw the line? Is it okay to use Matt Ryan this week since he's playing such a crappy team? Or do you just say, no, I'm not going down that road?
This is the biggest nightmare conversation of my life because I don't even want to talk. I don't want to fucking talk about the Atlanta Falcons at all. Because you know what? For the first 7 games of the year, 8 games of the year, I told everybody, keep betting against the Falcons. I never bet up. Everybody fucking kept winning. Second half of the year, I'm like, fuck it. I'm going to bet every game against the Falcons. And guess what happens? This isn't our betting podcast. I don't care. I hate the fucking Falcons so much. They start winning these last 2 games after their bye. They are shitting on me right now. I'm like, oh, now I'm going to bet against them because I'm going to jump on my own train. Look what they're doing to me. I can't stand this team. I cannot stand them. I don't give a fuck about Matt Ryan. No.
The crazy thing is, it's been the defense. The defense has just been shutting down. They shut down the Saints. They made a mockery out of Kyle Allen and the Panthers last week. So it's not even like the offensive line and Matt Ryan have been asked to like go over the top and do anything. 2 weeks ago, I think Julio had a decent game because of like one catch when Marcus Lattimore was sidelined for a little bit. That saved his fantasy day. And then last week against the Panthers, Calvin Ridley had a nice fantasy day. But it's not like Matt Ryan is out here throwing for 350 yards and 3 or 4 touchdowns. It's just very pedestrian. So you look at it matchup wise, and you basically think, I can't come up with a better matchup. But man, honestly, I don't know if you can use it because they could win this game by 20 and he might not hit that 20-point threshold. So I'm with you. I think the bad outweighs the potential good in this one. So as advice as a not used guy, even though they're tempting, that'd be Matt Ryan for me.
Look, I know this is our DFS podcast, but there is no vengeance like a gambling vengeance, and it carries over into all walks of life.
Oh God, yeah.
And I've basically, by not betting against them, like I said, by not betting against them in that first half of the season, they basically lost me money by not betting against them, and now have lost me money by betting against them. I just don't understand. I should have hundreds of dollars betting against this team already, but no, I jump on the trade, and now they're screwed. It's like they personally know. Like, if I were a Falcons fan, I would want me to bet against them every single game.
Right.
Because they know when I'm doing it. Like, I think I bet against them one game last in those like 8 games, and that was the one game they lost. Like it didn't even make sense.
No, it's crazy. They're one of those super unpredictable teams that you just kind of got to stay away from. One quarterback.
Don't even listen to me about this because I have such a vengeance against Matt Ryan. It's like I hate him with a passion. I hope he dies.
It's been that way for years. Him and Ben Roethlisberger, and you finally jinxed Ben Roethlisberger early this season.
Yeah, I don't even have to talk about him. He's dead.
You almost got Matt Ryan. He missed a week or two, but it wasn't enough.
I'll get him.
One guy I sort of like this week is Sam Darnold, 7,400 versus the Raiders. Do you think the little heater that he might be on as a Sam Darnold guy, do you think that might continue? The Raiders are 27th versus the pass. Darnold, last 2 weeks, 22 and 26 fantasy points against defenses that ranked in the 20s against the pass. And that game last week against the Redskins threw for nearly 300 yards and 4 touchdowns. Does the heat continue for Sammy D?
Absolutely, because number one, I think he would be playing more like this earlier if he never got the
mono.
If he never was kissing girls' titties. But he did, and it took him a few more weeks to get into the season.
In Josh Rosen's hot tub.
Grasp the Adam Gase offense, or whatever he calls that thing that he coaches. But I could see that this guy's a talented quarterback, and it was gonna happen one way or another. The guy can play. It's not gonna stop. He's figuring it out. He's in a zone. He's confident. He sees dead people. He's ready to go. I love Sam Darnold.
Yeah, he makes some throws throughout the game that just make you think, like, what in the hell is he doing? But we need to remember, it's only his second year. It's not like he's littered with playmakers. Like Le'Veon Bell hasn't lived up to anything with what we saw from him out of Pittsburgh. His receivers, I mean, we kind of like a few of their playmakers, but they're just guys. There's nothing out there that's like separating them over the top. Their offensive line isn't all that good. A lot is being thrown at Sam Darnold right now, especially with basically in his second offense in the NFL right now. And like you said, he was coming off basically playing where if he got hit hard, his spleen would explode. And from what I know, you don't want that to happen. Like, that's not going to end well. So I'm with you. I think they have a stretch of games here that he's going to be viable. The Jets are going to look a little bit better. And honestly, he or the quarterback you mentioned, Baker Mayfield, those would probably be my top 2 guys this week in DFS.
Yeah, we don't have any of the black quarterbacks playing.
That's true. What a turn of events for quarterbacks.
I love it.
Let's go on to your bargain running back of the week.
All right, so let me scroll down here because you have 8,000 things on the page. I'm going deep bargain here. I'm going $5,600.
Whoa.
Diving deep. I'm going with my boy, and this is only okay. I'm going with my boy Miles Sanders versus Seattle. Now, asterisk on this one. This is only if Jordan Howard does not play. Seattle is good against the run. They're really good. They actually, I think they're like 11th against the run in fantasy points given up this year. So they've done a good job.
Yep,
But
12th.
they 12th.
Yep.
They struggle a little bit more in the passing game to start running backs. So running backs who catch the ball in the backfield, he's a dynamic guy. And the one thing I've noticed about Miles Sanders, which he didn't get the opportunity to do against the Patriots, is when the defense that he's played against is a tough defense, that's when he kind of comes out and shines because Jordan Howard wasn't able to just run straight. And Miles Sanders has more flexibility. He can catch the ball. He's got a little more, wiggle in the hole. That's what my wife likes to say. And the guy is just dynamic. Like, I think they'll correct the fact that he only got the ball 4 times in the second half against the Patriots. Yeah. I think that was just the dumbest idea. The Eagles wide receivers are poop. They stink. Miles Sanders should have been targeted and used much more. I mean, you got to move the guy all over the field. He's a dynamic player. You can see it. Just the way he moves, his vision, the way he gets through a hole and then takes off and explodes. He's going to be the top running back taking over that offense. They brought in Ajayi for a reason. That means Howard's just not. I just don't think going to be ready to go yet. I love Miles Sanders. I think he sees a lot of opportunities, not just in the air but on the ground this week. I love him.
Yeah, if you're using a running back there, I can't disagree with that. And man, I just looked at it. Them and the Eagles have went through the gauntlet lately with teams that have been against the run. Their last 4 weeks, they've went against the 7th, 3rd, 8th, and 1st ranked rush defenses. And the thing is, of the running backs, they haven't popped off, but Miles Sanders has the one breakout game there. He had a 21-point game against the Bills. And yeah, now you said they're going against the Seahawks. Seahawks can be passed on. They're 28th against the pass. They are a little bit better against the run, but like you said, you get a guy like Miles Sanders out in space. You create opportunities for him to catch the ball and make plays with it. And then if he still can get 8 to 10 touches as an actual running back with handoffs, man, 5,600. If he gets 15 points, you're getting crazy ROI on that one. I'm just a little leery. The thing is, here you go. If you use a guy like Miles Sanders, you can afford monsters. Like, you can afford a top-tier quarterback. You can afford the guy like Michael Thomas. You can afford another running back like Christian McCaffrey. That's where I would say you have the advantage there. Now, if you're just doing maybe one lineup in a head-to-head, it'd be tough for me to use a guy like Miles Sanders just because in DFS, when I can use anyone, I want a little bit more consistency. But I get it. If you want that boom play, geez, at 5,600, you're not going to get anything close to that from anyone else.
I was just looking at Twitter and something came up. What was your AIM screen name back in the day? I may be dating myself.
Funny, because in case you don't know what that is, it's the AOL Instant Messenger. I actually had to explain this to someone. That's why I found it necessary to say that. It was funny because I was making fun of someone's email address earlier today, and I was like, it reminded me of an AOL Instant Messenger screen name, and it made me think. Mine was like Morgs 013 or something, and it was funny because we were talking like how all like the girls had like some girls had like I don't want to call them skanky, but like baby dancer, like I don't know, like they were on the verge of skankhood.
It was usually like a bunch of hearts before, XXX, Miss Cutie Pie.
Yeah.
And then hearts afterwards. And
InternetTease.com, yeah.
Yeah. Mine was incredible. Mine was LeBron Who too. What a great screen. What a great time to be alive. Just leaving the do you recall? I remember just putting up away messages even though I was sitting there the whole time just to see if like a girl would come talk to me, just waiting. It was in the way messages you used to put up on there was just like it was so corny and tacky.
I will die on this hill though. The away message killed the AOL Instant Messenger because as it progressed, you'd sign on and everyone would have that little yellow box next to them. There'd be no one there. Just everyone would have an away message.
Oh, I remember just sitting there staring at the screen waiting for the one girl I liked to pop green, and then what I would do is it would pop green, but then I'd wait. I'd play it cool.
Oh yeah, you can't. How long do you wait? Like what?
I wait, hoping that I wait at least 5 minutes to see if she says something to me first, since I was on there already. If she doesn't, I'd just be like, "Oh, didn't notice you were here."
It was Tinder to an extent before Tinder, right?
Oh yeah, middle school style though.
Oh yeah. Oh, I love it. I don't
One of
know where the hell
all
that
time
came
great
from, but what a
times.
trip down memory lane that was.
I mean, if you didn't live it, honestly, people should go. Everybody should get back on AAM just to throw it back for like a week. It should be like
Um,
Throwback Week America.
they should. Unfortunately, I read something within the last 2 years that it no longer exists. Like you can't even sign in.
Well, at work, I have something that's called Jabber, and that's pretty much the same
It
thing.
won't be the same, DJ. It won't be AIM.
But you have away messages, and you talk the same way. It's the exact same thing. It's just for work.
Yeah, that's the thing. No one else has it. You got to have AIM. Everyone had AIM. All right, DJ. Is Alvin Kamara about to go on a run and just skyrocket in price over the next couple of weeks? He scored his most points in a game last week since week 3. He had 17. He caught all 10 of his targets last week. Over his over his last 3 games, 28 targets. Now he gets the Panthers' 28th ranked run defense. If you can get your guy like Miles Sanders, man, Alvin Kamara is not even all that expensive right now. You can get him in the flex. You can get him as your top running back. I'm all about trying to get Alvin Kamara now and man into the future before he just pops up and is right neck and neck with like Christian McCaffrey. He might not get that high, but he's going to be elevating real soon here, in my opinion.
Yeah, I love Kamara. He was bouncing back from an injury, but even before his injury, you could see what he brought to the table. The way he broke tackles were just the tackles he gets out of. Didn't even make sense. Like they were alien. Like I've seen Christian McCaffrey do a lot of things. Some of the tackles Kamara got out of McCaffrey's never even dreamed of doing. Like he's good, he's great, but I don't know. I don't understand Alvin Kamara's balance. So obviously, I really like him. He's obviously a guy you're going to jump on. He's not a guy that you should ever be down on as long as he's healthy. And with Drew Brees back, I just think he becomes more and more valuable. So yeah, he was. I mean, how much was he? You didn't even put a price tag on here.
That's what I'm getting at, man. It doesn't matter what his price tag. He's not that much. I didn't put it on there, but whatever he is, man. I literally just pay it because you're going to get the return on it. This next question I have.
8,300.
83.
Yeah.
Yeah, get him before he's 95 is what I'm saying. This next question I have an answer to. I'm going to get your opinion first. What would you be
Wait, hold on.
Wait, what?
Remember when we were talking about Derrick Henry against the Chiefs and how I was like, how is he only 72 or 7,300 and he went off for 188 yards?
Wait, don't say anything because he's part of my next question.
Oh, okay, never mind.
Hell of a segue that you just stumbled into. What?
I'm just looking.
This is perfect. I'm glad you worded it that way. Because my question is, what would you be more likely to do this week? Spend the price that you were just going to say? Spend $8,400 on Derrick Henry? Or would you spend $7,000 on Leonard Fournette? They play each other. Which would you be more likely to do?
Fuck. I think I'm going to go with Leonard Fournette because, for this reason only, the Jaguars tried to all of a sudden think that Nick Foles was just going to come back and light up the world against the Goats.
Yeah.
And they tried to throw the ball a bunch, and he sucked. He was trash. I think he's going to be benched for Gardner Minshew in like 2 more weeks.
He wasn't bad. Let's be nice.
He was poop. And I think they're going to go back to just like they think everything that Leonard Fournette was doing previously was just an accident every single week for the past 6 weeks.
Maybe.
It's like, why do you get away from that? Coming off of I think they came off of a bye the week before this last week. So, like, he's fresh, ready to go. I don't understand that. They're going to go right back to that because they know that their game isn't throwing the ball. It relies on Leonard Fournette to open up the pass, and then you can use guys like DJ Chark. But, like, you can't be throwing the ball with Nick Foles to a guy that only has one wide receiver coming back off that injury. He doesn't even really know this offense. It just doesn't make sense. It's the first year in this. I didn't understand it. They'll go back to running. That's what's his name, the head coach does.
Doug Marrone. Yeah.
Doug Marrone. Yeah.
I agree with your logic there. I agree that the Jaguars need to get back to what they do, and that's going to make Nick Foles a better quarterback and the team just better in general. But here's a shit ton of reasons why I'm not scared of that price tag on Derrick Henry. Number 1, Jags are ranked 29th in run defense. Number 2, Henry should be just fresh, off of the bye week, and his last 2 games before that, 32 and 23 fantasy points. He's scored at least 1 touchdown in all but 3 games so far this season. Now go to the Fournette side of things. He's going against the Titans, 14th ranked run defense. He's failed to reach double-digit fantasy points both of the last 2 weeks. Last week, season low in carries with 8, season low in yards with 23.
Exactly.
This is the craziest stat. Even as a Leonard Fournette owner, I did not know this until I looked this up. Basically, all of his fantasy points this season have come from yards. He has 1 total touchdown over the course of the entire season. That's crazy for how good he's doing at running back this year, like compared to everyone else. To have 1 touchdown, it's crazy. It's nice to not be touchdown dependent, but man, sprinkle in a damn touchdown every once in a while. Get those 6-pointers. I have to go with Derrick Henry over him this week.
I think that's an argument against yourself because he's going to score. He's Leonard Fournette, and the fact that he can score those points on a guy who was touchdown reliant in his first year, and now he's scoring the points by just running the ball purely and not having to score and rely on that, means he's going to score and add points on top of that. Yeah, like you said, Nick Foles threw the fucking ball 47 times
too
in
many.
his first game back. You can't win like that with a guy who's an average quarterback.
Right.
He's an average at best quarterback, and he just got back off of a huge injury that kept it out this long. That doesn't make any sense. You're the Jacksonville Jaguars. You play defense and you run the ball. Know your identity. They're going to go back to it. He should carry the ball 20 times. Honestly, I couldn't imagine he carries it less than 20 times this next week. He'll bust. He always is good for 1 big run.
Gee, are you okay?
Hit a touchdown. No, I just hit the mic.
Sounded like you fell over, probably. Let's go on to your bargain wide receiver for the week.
Scrolling down. Why are your notes so fucking long? Like,
Because I told you, this week I don't have specific players. I have scenarios, I have observations, and I have advice.
So this week I'm going with a wide receiver I'm going to end up starting in my regular fantasy leagues to help get me to the playoffs. I'm going DK Metcalf, 6,700 versus Philadelphia, 29th in the league in points given up to wide receivers. Perfect fit in this Russell Wilson-led offense. Like I said before the season, before he got drafted, I said he would fit. There are certain offenses that I think he would work really well in because I just don't think he's a guy who can like succeed in a timing routes type of offense, like an Aaron Rodgers offense and things like that, where you have to be. Well, he probably work in Aaron Rodgers, but like the one step look, you have to be in the right spot type of quarterback. Like I don't think he would work well with Dak Prescott. I just don't.
Yeah.
He's just a one-look type of dude. He'd work well with a Ben Roethlisberger, Russell Wilson, where he can use his speed to run around after they break it open. But and I can't remember. I'm blanking on Philadelphia's best cornerback. He's going to end up taking away Tyler Lockett. DK Metcalf's going to get one-on-one, and you know Russell Wilson is going to give DK Metcalf 100 chances with his height, his size, his speed to go up and make some plays, and he's scoring touchdowns. So, yeah, DK Metcalf, 6,700, that's dirt cheap. Playing against this Philadelphia secondary, light it up.
If I was going to do a stack of the week this week, that's one of the ones I considered was the Russell Wilson DK Metcalf. And why I was going to go DK was because Tyler Lockett is coming back from that injury. He's expected to play and be fine. However, I don't want him to pull a Thielen. I don't want him to come back out, bang, after 7 plays, he gets pulled. I don't want that. The whole Josh Gordon thing, I wouldn't use him. I wouldn't stack him with Wilson. If I am going to run that stack, it would be with DK for all the reasons you just mentioned. Not funny, that's a mean thing to say. What's your take on Tyler Lockett coming out and admitting that he's the NFL version of Tim Tebow?
I didn't even hear that.
I think he's 27 years old. He came out publicly and said he is waiting for marriage to lay the pipe.
What's wrong? That doesn't even make sense. How can you be a professional football player and not bang?
Isn't that amazing?
I'd rather just die. Like, what's the point of what's the point of making all this money if you can't just bang do whatever you want?
I'm going to write that and make a t-shirt out of it.
I just don't get it.
What's the point of making all this money if you can't run around and bang whoever you want?
Like, let me do it then. I'll take over.
Oh, God. Yes, I'm with you on that one. Let's, I got a couple of observations I'm going to make here from the wide receiver. Jalen Mills, yes, LSU product. I got a lot of observations from the wide receiver position this week. So if you want to just kind of glance at them and just hit on them a little bit, we can go from there. My first one, though, the Josh Allen John Brown combo has stayed hotter longer than any of us ever imagined.
Oh, yeah.
John Brown and Michael Thomas, I saw this stat on TV last week, are the only two players to have at least 50 receiving yards in every game this year. Crazy thing is, John Brown is still a bargain at $6,500 on FanDuel, but he goes against Denver. Does this consistency streak that they have had come to an end this week against the Broncos? Last week, season high in catches with 9, season high in yards with 137, and a season best 2 touchdowns. Scored 30 fantasy points, and I said this before, he's super consistent. Scored 9 or more fantasy points in 8 of 10 games this season. Is this the week the consistency ends?
Yeah, don't want it. Don't want to deal with it. Denver's defense is great. They should have beat the Vikings. I'm real angry about that. They shut them down pretty good. They should have beat the Vikings. Blew it in that second half.
Big time.
I mean, they're dominating all over the place. Chris Harris, great. Von Miller, dominating, just out there. They're going to get to the. I don't think the Bills are that good of a team. I think they're one of those teams that's kind of like, I don't want to say it, but they're fraud. They're really out. They're good enough to beat bad teams. They're a good enough team to beat up on bad teams. But they won't be able to beat good teams.
Yeah, if they don't play perfect against a good team, they're going to struggle. Yeah.
And the Broncos aren't even that good of a team, but they have a good enough defense that they're just going to, Allen will have an interception or two, get sacked a bunch of times. He'll have a few turnovers, probably a fumble. They're going to struggle, bad. I think they're really going to struggle against the Broncos this game.
Yeah, I'm usually all about, because John Brown's been a bargain all year. I've been all about using him as a bargain wide receiver this year. And then I've been all about using Josh Allen as well, because he's actually gotten it done passing-wise stats this year in fantasy, and his running is always there. The dude seems to run in a touchdown like every other week. But yeah, this week, I've got to pump the brakes on him as well. How about this one? Kenny Golladay. Do you consider him unusable in daily fantasy as long as Jeff Driscoll is at quarterback? He is still on the Sunday-only slate, 5th high, most expensive wide receiver. Last week, 1 catch, 34 yards. 2 weeks ago, 3 catches, 57 yards, and a touchdown. And I believe the majority of his yards came on 1 nice touchdown grab that you can't take away, but a little bit fluky. But before Driscoll got hurt, back-to-back 20-plus point fantasy games. Now it sucks because I would want to use him, but Stafford out in this money matchup against Washington. I would love to use him, but is he unusable if Jeff Driscoll remains quarterback, which he will?
Probably not. I think eventually quarterback always knows who their best wide receiver is. Eventually he's going to get him the rock. That's just kind of how it goes. My quarterback always got me the ball because I was the baller. You always get your baller the ball. I'm one of those guys. Kenny Golladay is that guy. They'll find a way to get him involved back in this offense. They've lost a couple of games. You find a way as a head coach to get your best players the ball. Kenny Golladay essentially is the best player in that offense. Not really even close, actually, I don't think.
Right.
So, yeah, they'll get it to him. I don't think he's unplayable by any means, especially against the Redskins.
So, but this week, if he's the 5th most expensive wide receiver, are you taking that chance against the R-words?
See, it feels like one of those Vegas type of things where the gambling doesn't make sense, so I'm going to take it. It doesn't make sense, so I'm absolutely going to take it because he's probably going to dominate.
Literally 4 catches for about 90 yards in the last 2 weeks, and he's the 5th most expensive wide receiver. I can't use him. I'd love to.
You know what? I'm using him, and then when he dominates, I'm going to tell you how that made sense. My gambling strategy hasn't worked, but it will here.
In fantasy anyways?
Yeah.
I just feel for myself and everyone else who has Kenny Golladay, who's had that nice breakout, consistent. He's had breakout weeks in the past, but he's never been that super consistent guy. And he's finally doing it this year. And then Stafford ends up having a broken back and literally probably won't play the rest of the season. And one of your top receivers is just kind of meh now the rest of the season as the playoffs are about to start. So,
how are you going to talk shit about Jeff Driscoll?
I'll save that for another podcast. I think I know the answer to this next one, but I said I was going to talk a little bit more about the Browns when we got to the wide receiver position. But is this the week Odell Beckham finally just literally puts up just a monster game? He's only $7,000 on FanDuel, going against the Dolphins' 20th ranked pass defense. The dude hasn't been over 13 fantasy points since week 2 against the Jets, and he basically did it because he took that slant to the house. That's basically why he did it. But over the last 2 weeks, Baker has been throwing the ball, 22 targets. Is this the breakout week? Is he going to get 20 to 30 points in this week?
If not this week, when? Right?
Perfect.
Exactly. Miami Dolphins. John Brown just dominated. John Brown is not half the wide receiver that Odell Beckham is. If Baker doesn't throw in the ball repeatedly, I think Odell should just walk off the field and find Eli and never come back. Like, I don't. He's done. He should be done with Baker for the rest of his life if he doesn't score a touchdown and have at least 100 yards in this game. Best on a separate note here. Best trade of my entire life.
Yeah, you traded Odell this year. Man, you fucking made hay. I don't even know what that means, but you made it.
Cortland Sutton and Mark Andrews. I'm the best. I just traded for a tight end and a wide receiver who's way better than him.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. I think if I were to do a stack this week outside of Russell Wilson and DK Metcalf, it'd be easily. And this is a bargain stack with Odell Beckham. I never thought I'd see the day where you get Odell Beckham at $7,000 on FanDuel. You get him and Baker. You can use Derrick Henry. You can use Leonard Fournette. You can use Christian McCaffrey, Michael Thomas, all the expensive dudes, and you still have a chance to compete against that guy that's using like mediocre players at every single position because, God, you're spending literally $7,000 on one of the league's best receivers that just hasn't been able to make it happen yet. And like you said, if not this week, when? I'm all about it, man. If it doesn't work this week, him and Eli should just try to start their own team. Like, just try something.
Yeah, fuck them.
DJ, your favorite position. You just talked about tight end. Do you have any bargains this week?
I have decided to retire and forgo the rest of the season on talking about tight ends because as soon as O.J. Howard tried to catch the ball behind his back after having it in his hands, the ball got intercepted and then he got benched, I was done. I just left. I was like, fuck tight ends. Like I hate tight ends already, but as soon as I put my neck out for a guy who scored a touchdown the week before when I started doing it, and he goes ahead and he has a ball in his hands that somehow ends up behind his back. I don't even know how it got there, but somehow ends up behind his back and then gets picked off. I'm done. I'm just done with tight ends. He didn't play the rest of the football game.
You can't hate the guy for trying to make that catch, but when it happens and your quarterback proceeds to throw a total of 4 interceptions, it just stinks because Jameis made some terrible decisions in that game, but that goes against Jameis Winston on a throw that he hit the dude in the hands. How terrible must he feel?
It's all right between the 8 and the 0. It hit him right in the hands and somehow ended up, there should be a frozen picture of the ball, of Howard trying to catch the ball behind his back, and it should just say, the meme should be like, what if I told you this ball hit O.J. Howard right in the chest?
You would say, how? You would say, how the hell did that happen?
Yeah, like you see pictures of like a guy with 4 people surrounding him and be like, this guy scores a touchdown on this. Yep. And you're like, how? That's exactly. This ball gets intercepted behind O.J. Howard's back.
You would have had to think that the ball somehow went through his chest.
Through him.
And ended up behind him. Because, yeah, that's exactly the thing. If you saw a still frame with the ball right there, you would have no idea. Like, imagine a person new to football watching that play. Like, oh, this happens every week.
It doesn't make any sense.
Let's go to listener questions since it actually, one of them involves a tight end that I'm intrigued by a little bit in daily fantasy this week. Here's the question, DJ. I don't know if you read this beforehand, but I'm going to need you to pay attention because it's a little long. It's a little confusing. And I also have an issue with this league. This is layered. So, this particular fantasy league allows a maximum 35 waiver moves. This person is currently at 31 moves. They have Evan Ingram. They have Eric Ebron. It's a half PPR league. Is it worth for this person to spend one of his moves on Jacob Hester, given how Russell Wilson's tight ends have actually been doing pretty well this year? Or should he save the waiver play, not get Hester, I call him Hester, not get Hollister, and roll with Evan Ingram and Eric Ebron?
Number one, you said Jacob Hester twice. You didn't realize it the first time.
I told you last week that every time.
This is the second week in a row that you mentioned Jacob Hester's name, and I don't get it.
I'm the only person that talks about Jacob Hester anymore. It's amazing.
Pass.
So I got a theory on this one. First, I think I would do it for Ebron. Evan Ingram's banged up. Eric Ebron got sick, had a leg injury. I don't think they practiced on Monday, but they do like their fake injury report. He showed up on it. So yes, I would do the move. I would dump Ingram. The last 2 weeks, Jacob Hollister. Let me get that right. I don't want to have Jacob Hester calling me, telling me he's making all these plays when he's not. Last 2 weeks, Hollister has scored 16 and 17 fantasy points, and he saw 10 targets in his game last week. With the uncertainty with Ebron, with Evan Ingram having a bit of an injury, you got 4 more moves to make. At this point, your team should be fairly solidified. I say do it. I would use one of my moves. My only other beef is there shouldn't be a cap on waiver wire moves. You should be able to make 117 if you want. You should be able to drop the same player 16 times, pick him back up 17. I think it should be unlimited.
I agree, and if you're in an free agent auction league, you should only get to spend like $1 because $0 doesn't make any sense in an auction league because $1 is the minimum for anything that you're going to pay in the entire world. It just doesn't make sense.
That's an inside me and DJ conversation. If I had more time right now, I would go off and vent. However, I haven't ate yet today and I'm hungry, so I'm definitely going to do that. So DJ, outside of your a personal opinion on free agent auction bids and your incorrect opinion, do you have anything else you'd like to add to today's podcast?
Are you going to eat your wife's placenta?
I have a plan already, and the plan, I'm going to spoil it, and only those who are listening are going to know. We're going to have a party shortly after the baby is born. We're going to serve mystery meat, and it's going to be the placenta.
I can't wait.
So if you're listening to this, don't come to my house shortly after the baby is born. You're going to get served placenta sandwiches.
Yeah, because then I'll have the strength of a regular human and a little baby.
Well done, office man. As always, check us out on Twitter at LoadedBox. Check out the website, loadedboxpodcast.com. All of our podcasts, all of our weekly articles, our daily fantasy articles, our start-sit articles, our sleeper articles, everything can be found there. Next episode, we'll be doing our gambling podcast for week 12, where we go game by game, straight up and against the spread picks. Available on iTunes, YouTube. I went out of order. It screwed me up. iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, YouTube. Subscribe, rate, review. DJ, send us out.
Bye.